This agenda is on inheritance. Why do we need inheritance? What is inheritance? Components of inheritance, the extend keyword, access modifiers, super keyword, types of inheritance, the diamond problem, is a relation, and has a relation. What is inheritance? There are two other key terms which are not going to be in this agenda, but you should also, when you get to them, make sure you bundle them together as you're understanding these structures. And that's the abstract class and the polymorphism. So what is inheritance? Inheritance is an act through which a new class gets created by acquiring the variables and methods defined in the previous parent class. So when we look at what is inheritance, we can take an example of, say, food. We have veggies, noodles, fruits, where food is the parent, and your veggies, your noodles, and fruits are all subclasses of that. They're all kind of children of food. Why do we need inheritance? We implement inheritance for a multiple of reasons, like creating a possibility to add or remove features, to reduce the code length as we reuse the code, more comfortable to develop and maintain the project. And so if we start looking at, let's say we have a cell phone. We make calls, we have our SMS texting, our communication. On our phone we have our media. We also had a browser on there, because now we have a smartphone. And we look at that, we have our phone set up, and then we have our full smartphone, media, call, SMS, and browser. And we start to kind of link these. Instead of making them separate, we can have the call and the text, and then we can have them inherit. We can actually create a media that inherits their qualities. So now you can text your media. Now you can use the browser as part of your call scenario. And I would even add one more example in here, and that is that all programming languages that are object-based are built on inheritance. Java, Python, C++. So this concept of building an object, and then that object then is inherited by everything underneath of it, is important to understand, even in these even as we're looking at more specific cases. So we'll take a look at the components of inheritance. And the most important two components in inheritance, the two major components that are mentioned, are parent class, or the superclass, and the child class, or the subclass. And to see this, let's go ahead and jump into Eclipse and take a look at what the actual code looks like. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and add in a new package. And we're going to go ahead and call this package inheritance, because that's what we're working with. Oops. Gave me a default Java tutorial in there. Inheritance, finish. And I started off with the Java tutorials, just went in and created a new project and made sure it was Java based. So we have our package inheritance right here. We're going to go ahead and add in a new class. And we'll go ahead and call this class machine. Now, one of the standards when you're creating classes is to capitalize the first letter, so always remember to do that. In some places, people like to have the whole word capitalized. It really depends on who you're working with. But it is kind of, if it starts with a capital letter, it's probably a class. And so once we have our inheritance, we have our public class machine. Let's go ahead and give it a little bit underneath there to do something. And we'll start with protected string brand. And so whatever machine we're working with, these particular machines are going to be, we'll call them, it'll be a Samsung. Free, they get some free marketing right there for Samsung. So Samsung machines. And then we want it to do something, so let's go ahead and put a procedure in there. And we'll make it public, void, because it's not going to return anything. And we'll call this wash. I guess they're all wash machines. There we go. There's our bracket. It's a little trouble finding the bracket on there. And let's just have it, during this, we'll just have it do a quick print line. And we'll say initiating cycle. There. And then, of course, our semicolon on the end. All right, so now we have a public class machine. And we're going to get into where we start working with the actual inheritance. You can create an object with this machine. We haven't done anything special to it. It's like any other class you might create in the Java language. And we've added in public void wash, a procedure with no return. That's what the void means. And it's going to print out. And so let's go ahead and create another class in here. New class. And this one's going to be washing machine. Washing machine. And we'll go ahead and hit finish on here. And we come into our washing machine. It's opened up a nice new tab for us. And we might have a private string model name. And we'll change this to model type. Model type equals, so the type of machine is a top load washing machine. So we have a Samsung as the main type of machines we're looking at. And we have top loader or top loading washing machine. And then we're going to add up here extends machine. And so this is the key code we're going to look for because we want this to have the properties of the machine. So this comes in and says whatever's in machine, we now also have in our washing machine. And then, of course, if we're going to do all this, we need to actually be able to run it. And if we're going to do that, we want to go ahead and add in the public static void main, reserved keywords there. And this is just your standard main startup. You have your string of arguments. There we go. And of course our bracket. And then in here, we're going to take and create a washing machine object. And so here's our wash machine. That's of course the type washing machine. And it's going to equal a new washing machine. So we're initiating a new object in here. There we go. And then we want to do something. And if we're going to have it do something, we want it to go ahead. Let's see what happens when we have wash. Remember our keyword up there was washing machine dot wash. And where did that come from? Well, if we go back into machine, here it is, public void wash. There's the procedure, and it's coming into the washing machine, and this is inherited. That way we don't have to retype that every time we have a washing machine. This could be washing machine. Maybe the next one is, I don't know, a different kind of washing machines. I'm not an expert on washing machines. But we have to do a wash, and then specific to the washing machine in here, we also had the type. And so we can come back up here, or brand. So we can come up down here, we can go system dot println wash machine dot brand plus put a little dash in there plus, and then we're going to go ahead and we have our wash machine dot model type. That model type we put in there. So the brand, where does the brand come from? The brand's coming from our machine. We have our protected string, which is going to be Samsung. And then we have our washing machine, which has the model type, which is a top load machine. And if we go ahead and run this, after, of course, we make sure we have that semicolon in on the end there. We come up there, we'll see initiating cycle. Initiating cycle is printed out from machine, and then the Samsung top load washing machine is the second printout line here. And so when we have our wash printout here also, the wash machine wash is initiating cycle, and then we have, that's where that printout comes from. We can go back up here to machine. You can see right here initiating cycle. And then we flip back over to the washing machine, and we print out washmachine.brand, which is the machine class, and then washmachine.modelType, which is underneath the washing machine. So let's go over all that. Let's take a look and see what we're talking about here. So we saw in the code the extends keyword. The term extends is a predefined keyword in Java that allows you to create a new child class by deriving the variables and methods from the parent class to reduce code length and improve the performance. And we see that right up here in our public class washing machine extends machine. So the next key thing to talk about is Acess modifiers. And I kind of breezed over them when I put together the code, but we'll dig in there a little deeper. When we talk about Acess modifiers, there's 4 different words you really need to know, and that's default, public, protected, and private. And I'm going to tell you right now, default equals public. So what is default? Default Acess modifier is set implicitly whenever you declare a class without a specific access modifier. By default, the access of a class or method, when declared without a specific access modifier, becomes available to any other method or class within the same package. And in Java, the default is public. So public, a certain class can be declared as public by using the keyword public. Any class or method, when declared as public, becomes available to any class or method declared in the same package. But if a different method or class needs it, it should be imported. And then we have protected. A certain class is declared protected by using the keyword protected. This provides access to the methods and variables of the protected class only to the rightful subclasses and protects the data from any other classes which are not related. And then private. A certain class is declared protected by using the keyword private. This provides the ultimate protection to the data members and the methods of the private class. This procedure is implemented by class to encapsulate the method and members. So we'll take a little, we're actually going to do a different example in here, but I do like this underneath the washing machine. You can see right here we have put in private, a private string. What this means is that only washing machine can access that private string. Where if you have protected, the children can access it. So a protected screen, if you're underneath a machine up here, we have protected, so that when I create the washing machine and extend machine, I can still access it. But if I create a subclass of washing machine and I mark it as private, that subclass is not going to be able to access it. And so it has to do with what layers of accessing. Think of this as a big team project. You create something, do you really want that to cascade down to the next class? Or who do you want to have access to that? Let's go a little deeper to really bring this home, because it's really important to understand this terminology. Let's go ahead and start a new class here, and we're just going to call this particular class summation. And go ahead and create that, finish. And so our summation class, it's going to be pretty simple in here. We'll go ahead and do public. So anybody can access it. Just remember, here's our public on there. And then we'll just do a integer, because that's what it's going to return as an integer. We're going to call it add, and we're going to put integer x comma integer y. And we'll just return x plus y. So real simple. We're just adding 2 numbers. Here's our 2 inputs. They both have to be integers. And we're going to return an integer, and it'll be the summation of the 2. So real simple class right there. And if we're going to have a summation, then let's go ahead and create a new class, and we'll call this one child. And in our new child class, we're going to go ahead and keep this simple, and we're just going to have our public static main. We're going to have our summation a equals new summation, and then system out print line a dot add 100 plus 200. Pretty straightforward. Everything's public in here. Oops, okay. There's our running, and we see the answer is 300. So this is public. If you remember correctly, we're talking about public. And so when we use the public keyword, any class or method when declared as public becomes available to any class or method declared in the same package. But if a different method or class needs it, it should be imported. So here we go. That's our public setup. It's just open to everybody. Well, everybody that's under the package inheritance. So it's whoever's using that package can now use this particular child. And let's go ahead and add a new class in. And this time we're going to do a parent class. I'll just put that right in there. And we come in with our parent class. You can see right here the parent class itself is public. But what we want to do underneath the parent class is we want to create a protected void, because we're not returning anything, and print. So we're going to do the print there. And this protected print, let's go and put our brackets in there. And we'll do just a simple print line hello world. And once we have the print hello world, we want to go ahead and add a child class to this. And let's see, we had the child class when it took it out a second ago. So we'll go ahead and put that back in. Here's our child class. And for this child class, we want it to go ahead and extend the parent. So inheritance, there's our extend on there. Oops, let me retype that. All right, extends parent. So now the child class is part of the parent class. And we'll go ahead and put our main in there so that it will run it and execute it. And we'll create our child x equals new child class. So we'll go ahead and assign our variable x and initiate it. And then we'll do just the print and see what happens here. So here's our print statement. And we'll go ahead and run this and compile our child on there. And when it comes in there, you see it says print hello world. And so the parent has marked this as protected. So it's protected from objects that are not inheriting it, but the child can still access that information and print it on there. So here's protected. This provides access to methods and variables of the protected class only to the rightful subclasses and protects the data from any other classes which are not related. In a lot of programming, that's usually where you end up, is doing a lot of stuff that is underneath your parent that is protected. You either make them public or protected. A lot of people are sloppy and just make them public, but most of the stuff you want to make sure it's protected. And then we finally have our private, and I'm going to go back here to our child, and we're going to run this. And it's going to come up and say proceed with launch, errors in setup, and then it's going to give us an exception thread main. Compilation error, the method print from the type parent is not visible. And that's because unless you actually initiate the parent, you're not going to see this code because it's private. It's only private to the public, to the parent class. So even if I extend it in child, it will not be available. And that again protects it. That means it's something that you don't want to inherit and cascade down, because maybe it is a piece of code that is going to be changed, and so you don't want all the children to crash every time you make a change to it. So with private, this provides the ultimate protection to the data members and the methods of the private class. This procedure is implemented by class to encapsulate the methods and members. So very important. We have private, and we have protected, and we have public. The more access you want other pieces of the software code to have and other programmers to have, the more public you want to make it. And of course, the default is public. Now, one of the common workarounds for this, because you're going to have protected data, but you still want it to be used by the subclasses, is to create what they call like a get or a, and we'll do it up here. We'll go ahead and do a private integer x equals 5. And then instead of, on your inheritance, instead of having it call it from the child, we might have a get thing, or a get thing. We might have a public, it's going to return an integer, and we might have it say get x. And this simply just return x. And what this means is that when we have something simple like this where it just does a return x, I can go back into my child here, and instead of print x, we'll do x dot get x. And we'll go ahead and print this out. Or yeah, something simple with that. We'll go ahead and do a system print line on this. And when we run this, you'll see it come up, it's going to recompile, and we get our 5. What's happening here is now I've created underneath the parent private information. You don't know what's going on with it. It's protected. You might have a procedure that's protected. In this case, we had the print procedure, and then we access it from the public. And this could have easily have been, instead of, maybe we'll just call it public void public print. Kind of a goofy way of doing the code. There we go. And then it could go in here and access our print. And so we can actually still access this print variable up here by wrapping it in kind of a get or a public function. This allows us to protect whatever code is going on in the parent class, so it can't be messed up, it can't be accessed indirectly, it has to go through the right processes. And so when we get to the child on here, the child can then still has the public processes, but all the other information is protected and is private. It's really important to remember that private right there. This brings us to super keyword. And when we talk about the super keyword eliminates the confusion between parent class method and subclass method. Super keyword is implemented to access a method or constructor that is defined in the parent class. So back in Eclipse, we'll go under parent, and we'll take this, we're going to take the private out of there, so now we have an integer 5. And we'll go ahead and just remove the print because we're not going to do that in the parent. Oops, and the public. There we go. And so let's create a parent that just has one piece of information. It has an integer x equals 5. And then we're going to go to the child, and let's go ahead and add in here integer x equals 10. And these are, by default, they're public. We haven't set anything on here telling it what it is. And so what I'd like to do is we'd like to go ahead and create a, oops, one more thing, there we go. Create a procedure here, and we'll just call this void capital print. And it's just going to be a system out print line. And this is what I want you to notice is we're going to print out x and super x. So we have the child class x and we have the parent class super x. And if we come down here and we do x dot print, don't forget my semicolon, add a couple spaces in here to make it look nicer when we print it. And we'll go ahead and run this. And you can see that the child class prints 10 and the parent class is 5. And so this way you can actually store different information depending on what it is you're working on and what you're doing. And that's where this super comes in. You can see right here where the super underneath the class and the print module. Now you can't just put it in down here under print. And we can explore what that looks like. If I just take this and I go ahead and highlight it. And let's say I wanted to just, instead of doing xprint, it's going to come up right here, and right off the bat you see the super.x. I could do x.super.x, and it's still going to give me an error right here. It has to be underneath a procedure in the actual class and not under the main. This brings us to types of inheritance. And there's 4 main types. We have single inheritance, which we've already pretty much looked at, but we'll go back over. We have multi-level inheritance. We have hierarchical inheritance and hybrid inheritance. Let's go ahead and just start with the single inheritance. Single inheritance consists of one parent class and one child class. Here, child class inherits parent class methods and data members. And let's go ahead and create a new class up here, just to change it up and keep it interesting. New class. And we'll call this one student. And under the student, we'll have a simple setup. We'll just do an enrolled, and it'll say enrolled in Simplilearn. There we go. So there's our class student, and then we'll create another class. We'll do it as because we have our student, our base student, and then we'll call this one new class. And we'll call this one computers. There we go. So he's enrolled, finish. And for computers, let's go ahead and put in a print line here. And we'll put down studying computers. And we want to go ahead and do the extends student. So it's a student studying computers, subclass computers. And this would all look familiar because we've been doing this for, a lot of the other setups. This is your basic inheritance. And we'll change that from enrolled to studies. And then let's go ahead and put a main in here so we can actually run it. And we have our P enrolled, which comes from our parent class, and our P studies, which comes from the child, or the one that inheritance it, the extends for student. And let's go ahead and run that. There we go, run. And you can say enrolled in Simplilearn studying computers. And then we can go on to the next setup. And this is where we look at multi-level inheritance. It is also a parent-child inheritance relation, but the difference is the child class is inherited by another child class. This is the basic structure of most programming languages right here. You have an object, you have all the different things under the object, and it gets all the way down to whether it's an array you're working with, whether even a class is a subchild that goes all the way up to the object. And we can simply do that in our code in Eclipse. And we'll just go ahead and add a new class in there. We'll call this one Java. There we go. Oops, Java. And under Java, we want to go ahead and create some of the similar stuff. And then I want to go back to my student. I took out the main and student just because I don't want it to run the main in there. And in here, we're going to have system out. We're going to have, instead of studying computers, focus on Java, which is what we're doing right now. And maybe we'll call this classroom. And then we can come down here and we have our P equals new computers. Well, instead of new computers, we want our Java. And it's going to be a Java object. And we need to put our extends in up here. Extends, in this case we came from computers. So there's our initial thing, and then we have our last print in here. And of course, if we run this now, we'll see that it should, if I did everything correctly, come up and say enrolled in Simplilearn, studying computers, focus on Java. And we have the enrolled, which is the parent to computers, and then we have under computers, well, we have student, then computers, and then Java. And so each one of these classes just cascades all the way down. And this is your multi-level from your class A to class B to class C. And if you can have multi-level inheritance, we can also have a hierarchical inheritance where your parent-child relationship, the only difference is here multiple child classes inherit from one parent class. And that is pretty, we'll do another class here. If you remember correctly, we had student, computers. Maybe from student we'll have, instead of computers, we'll have project management. Project management. So you're studying your IDLE and all your other classes in there for Cascade and for doing agile programming. And in here we can do that. And it's just the same as we did before. We just have a second child coming in from here. And so this would go ahead and extends student. And of course, whatever subcategory you have one in here for running this. And so for here, we'd have like our void studies. In this case, instead of studying computers, we're studying project management. One of the other wonderful classes that is taught from the Simplilearn team. And we'll go and run that, and you can see right here we have computers. Oops, of course, instead of computers, I meant to do project management. There we go. And we have to also initiate it as a new. And then when we run here, we can see this. We're enrolled in Simplilearn and we're studying project management. And then finally there is the hybrid. The name itself explains it to us. The hybrid inheritance can be a combination of any of the three types of inheritance supported in Java. And so maybe we already saw that because we have our A and our B. If we flip back on over to our Eclipse, we have our student. Our student now has a computers, project management. So there's our hierarchical, and then they're mixed because we also have the Java, which is an extension of the computer. And so we have multiple layers there. So one of the issues that comes up with inheritance in classes is what they call the diamond problem. And in the diamond problem, the Java programming language does not support multiple inheritance as it ends up with serious ambiguity. And that is where we have D, which inherits from both B and C, which might both inherit from A. This is the diamond factor because as you start tracking your supers going up, which one are you actually looking at, B or C or A? And that's why they call this the diamond problem. It comes up more than you would think. You get very complicated structures and you realize, oh, I need to have both sets of instructions come down to whatever I'm working on. And you can see where that can become a problem. Let us take a look at is a relation and has a relation. Now, these, they're vocabulary, but they're more of a concept, understanding how things fit together. And so when we talk about is a relation, when a class inherits methods and members from a different class, then the relationship is said to be is a relation. Examples, orange is a fruit. And let's just jump back on over here and we'll make a new class. And we'll call this class customer. So we're going to have our customers. Oops. There we go, if I can remember how to type. So we have a class customer. And I've gone ahead and our team in the back went ahead and prepped this for us. Let's just take a quick look though. We got public string name, so it's accessed publicly. If you leave this out, it'll automatically be public because that's the default. And then we have our customer and the string, which is a name, and a string is a city. And then when you do a customer and you send it the name and the city, it will do this name equals name and this city equals city. We could have easily done this private. We have a call into it to create it. So it wouldn't really matter too much whether we did it private or public. I would actually be more likely to do it private. And for this example, we'll go ahead and create another class and we'll call this store. We'll have our store class. So we have customers and we have a store. And then we'll go ahead and set up in here. And this time we did do a private. We're going to create a list of customers, and then the store list coming down, and then this customers, and public list customers. A quick look at this is we did make this one private, which is nice because now it can't be accessed externally except from store. And then store has the public list customers. So we can send it a list of customers and then it go ahead and returns the customers from that list. And then when we add it to the store, it sets the customers in the store. This.customers equals customers. One of the reasons we have the error lines in here is I haven't compiled it, so it doesn't see the customers are part of our package. And we'll get to that in just a moment here. And then let's go ahead and create another class. We'll call this is a relation, since that's what we're working on. And here's our is a relation setup. And we're just going to put this as the main, so you have your main in there. And then we went ahead and prepared a series of customers. And we'll just call it customer C1 equals a new customer, customer C2 equals a new customer. And we're just creating a list here. That's all we're doing. And if we're going to have a list, then we need to go ahead and create a list of customers. And we'll just do that with a simple list setup. And then we got to add those customers into the list. So let's go ahead and do that. So breaking this down, we have customer 1, which is Raju, Bangalore, Shiva, Hyperbad, Sachin, Mumbai, and so on. And then we just created a list of customers, a new array of lists, and then we add in each of those customers. So now we have a nice list of all our different customers in here. And then we want to go ahead and create our store. And we'll put in store, and it'll be a Fruit Smoothies franchise. I put down Fruit Smoothies Franch. Maybe that's not a good abbreviation because you might think it's a French instead of franchise. But it'll be a new store. And then we have our new store, which is, in this case, we're going to put in that new store customers. And if you remember, we went back here into store. Let me just flip back on over there. It's going to take that list of customers and put that into this customer. So now the private list is going to equal that list of customers. And then, of course, we can come in here and we do public list. It's going to return that list of customers. So we have public Acess here, and this store, you can add public at the beginning. We'll go ahead and do that just to make it clear. Is it public? Is what's going to run on there. And let's go back into our is a relation. And flip back to store. I'm going to go ahead and just change this to customer list. So here's our list, customer list, and it's going to return the customers from this selection, from our private variable. So we come into here, we can come down here and we'll go ahead and put that in there. We'll do a loop on this. We'll have a list customer, and we're going to create a list of our customers from our Fruit Smoothies franchise, and we'll get the customer list from there. And then for a customer in the for customer CST in customer, we're going to go ahead and just print that name out there. Now at this point, if you have an error showing up here under list and also underneath array list, depending on how you did your install, you might have to go ahead and import those, your array list, from your Java utility. Not a big deal. And then once we go ahead and we have this all set up, you'll see here the compiler goes through, and then we have the name of the customer, city, and then it just lists the customers going down here. So when we talk about our relationship of our Fruit Smoothies franchise and customers, the customers, they are a relationship directly to the French Smoothies franchise. Now, the second idea is it has a relation. And let's go ahead and take a look at that and see how that differs. And we'll go ahead and create a, let's see. We had customers, so let's do, and we'll call this one, we're doing with smoothies, so we'll have flavors. Or favorite. We'll do favorite flavors. Favorite flavors for a class. Very strange class. And let's see, in favorite flavors, we'll go ahead and give it a couple things to look at. We'll have a private string and a name. And then we'll have a public string get flavor. There we go, and that's just going to return, We'll just have that return the name of the flavor. There we go. And then we want to go ahead and create one more class, and this class we'll call has a relation. And I'm hoping you're guessing where we're going with this. Let's go ahead and put some code in here to make it work. And let's go back to our favorite flavors and put in a constructor so that we can load the flavors, and then return this name so we can return the flavors. We'll go back into has a relation. And let's just create a customer. We'll call it cust. Our new customer is Toby Marshall from Mumbai. And our favorite flavors are strawberry, banana, and peanut butter. I don't know, it's a strange concoction. And then we run a print line. We're going to print the customer name from customers and the flavors get flavor. And so when we're looking at this, what I want you to be aware of is that neither the flavors nor the customer are in the same class. They're not, it's not an actual relationship, but they have a relationship because we have Toby who happens to like strawberry and peanut butter. And if you remember, just a quick note, we were looking at the diamond problem. You can create a class that then has these two subclasses in. And that's how you go around the diamond problem, is you don't inherit, but you create classes inside the class you're working with. So entering a Q&A session, we certainly at Simplilearn, www.simplilearn.com, have a nice community along with our bulletin boards for answering questions from our experts. We'll take just a few moments to answer questions from the teacher or whoever's proctoring this. Thank you for joining us at Simplilearn. For more information, please visit www.simplilearn.com.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.